Thank you all.
I guess that makes sense there, right?
Yes. Can you just stop your camera? Okay, sorry. Here's my purse and my sister.
morning, everyone. Good morning. What a beautiful day. Please remain standing for a few minutes while the invocation will be pronounced by Robert Maynard, the stepfather of Marty McCaleb, a member of the graduating class.
Let us pray. Holy Father, Creator of heaven and earth, we come before your throne of grace to ask your blessing on these graduates. Though we come from many diverse backgrounds, we believe, Father, you are the sustainer of life. Though we have many different ways of worship, you are the one that gives blessings. Though we have experienced many different problems, you have seen us through each difficulty. Each person here has worked very hard to get to this place. You have enabled us in mind, body, and spirit to think, move, and create. We want to remember your past blessings and ask for your guidance in our future efforts. Though our future is uncertain, we ask you to enable us to do and to use what we have learned from this place. Help us to make our nation a better place because of the things we say and do. Help us to change lives for the better because of our actions and our attitudes. Father, we will go many different ways when we leave this place, but we will always be under your watchful care. Enable us in mind and body, and help us to remember that without your blessings and grace, we cannot accomplish our goals. Bless us now, Father, for we ask this in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen.
Please be seated. Well, this truly did turn out to be a beautiful day. It was touch and go there a little while ago, but we're going to plow through, and there's not a cloud left in the sky. Members of the class of 2010, faculty and staff, distinguished guests and families, trustees Gray and Vardaman, trustee emeritus Marion, friends of the university. We gather this morning in celebration, reflection upon the days we shared together, anticipation of what lies ahead, and relief that exams, grades, and tuition bills are finally behind you. Yeah, there was a definite round of applause there from the parents at any rate. Yet surely there is a suspicion lurking among some of you, a suspicion that it is best not to dwell on this morning, that there will be days ahead when you will find yourself looking back on torts and contracts and the friendly confines of Lewis Hall, when you will find yourselves marveling at how your professors actually made it all so interesting, and thinking that the quest for a good grade was so much more civilized than the quest for billable hours. Before we get too far into the formalities of the ceremony, I have a request for the graduates of the class of 2010. Take one last look around at the graceful setting in which we find ourselves this morning, one of the most beautiful in all of higher education, thankful that the weather has indeed allowed us to be out here. Take note also of the people who have gathered here today. Parents, spouses, partners, children, friends, faculty, staff. They couldn't be prouder. They have sacrificed on your behalf, and you are surely filled with gratitude. But today is your day, and our pride comes from knowing that someone we care about has, after much hard work, achieved a goal and fulfilled a dream. It is fitting that we also take note of others who have made this possible. This is the 161st year for the School of Law. When Robert E. Lee assumed the presidency of Washington College in 1865, he was quite aware that healing the nation's wounds posed challenges unlike any that had come before and required an education unlike what existed at that time. Knowledge for its own sake, the cultivation of the mind, remained a virtuous aspiration, but we should also pursue the cultivation of humanity and its betterment. To change the world, leaders needed the capacity for ethical reasoning, along with technical, analytical, and practical knowledge. Not only should they have the ability to seek justice, they needed also a deep understanding of the meaning of justice and the moral fortitude to commit to a cause greater than the self. And so Judge Brockenbrough's Lexington School of Law became part of Washington College and has since grown into national prominence. It has produced graduates known for professionalism and competence, for understanding the intricate details of the law and the deepest ethical responsibilities it imposes upon them. As we congratulate you, we charge you with fulfilling your duties. We know that you will meet and exceed the very high standards of those who came before you. We wish you the very best. This has been an interesting year in the School of Law. Indeed, your 3 years across the ravine, you have become part of a growing conversation on the nature and the future of legal education. Dean Rod Smola has led that effort and has asked all of us to confront the exciting, if somewhat intimidating challenge of revitalizing law school curricula here and across the country. Soon he will be leaving us for the presidency of Furman University in South Carolina. With gratitude for his contributions, with my deepest wishes for his continued success, and with my gratitude for his friendship, I now recognize Rod Smola, Dean of the School of Law.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Over the course of the last year, I had the good fortune to supervise a number of students who were doing independent research papers. And in one of those papers, written by one of our graduates, Jenna Cremines, there was a quotation from a great American legal philosopher, Yertle the Turtle. Yertle was speaking, of course, through the voice of Dr. Seuss, but I invite you to listen to the turtle's words. I know, up on top, you are seeing great sights, but down on the bottom, we too should have rights. I invite you, my new colleagues in the profession, to remember Yertle's words as you leave this place. As you leave, I invite you to reflect on why you came. I hope that reflection leads you to the insight that you came here to grow not into something, but into someone. My hope for you is that the someone you have become and will continue to grow to be will be animated deep inside you by the great values and traditions of the profession. My hope is that you enter the practice of law with an indelible sense of its centrality to the democratic experience, to the very rule of law itself. I hope that you enter practice with a deep sense of civility, humility, respect for human dignity, and the eternal, never-ending quest for human justice. I now ask the members of the class of 2010 to rise. Mr. President, I have the honor to present two candidates for the Master of Laws degree and 123 candidates for the Juris Doctor degree. They have been examined by the faculty and approved by the Board of Trustees. They are to be congratulated on their command of the ways by which justice is attained and commended for their exceptional learning to the advancement of a just social order. I ask you, by your official act, to confer upon them their degrees.
Upon the recommendation of the faculty and approval by the Board of Trustees, I hereby confer the degrees of Master of Laws and Juris Doctor of Washington and Lee University. Please come forward to receive the diploma as your names are called, and I ask that the audience hold its applause until the last graduate has received his or her diploma.
Mr. President, I present two candidates for the Master of Laws degrees, both of whom are from the nation of Afghanistan. Mohammed Asif Hassan. Sebgatullah Ibrahimi. I now present the candidates for the degree of Juris Doctor. Kafwi Ama Assembly. Juliana J. Bay. Brian Lee Bell. Nicholas Paul Bianchi. Lauren Marie Bergstrom. Kiyomi Dalen Bolick. Alexandra Beth Botwitnick. Lauren Lucy Fairfax Brandon. Meredith McDonald Brebner. Jason Gerard Brown. Lindsay Dalton Brown. Ronald David Paul Bruckman. Christina Marie Buccina. Joshua Barney Cannon. Jennifer Ann Cantwell. Jody Lynn Castillo. Yamarie E. Cham. Patrick Thomas Chamberlain. M. Humza Chowdhury. Joseph Bradley Clark Cherry. Elizabeth Ellen Clark. Rebecca Kimberly Clinton. Joshua Joseph Coleman. James E. Collins, Jr. Aaron Bruce Cook. Victoria Vance Corder. Caitlin Roberts Cottingham. Jenna Walker Cremines. Edward Stewart Crossland. George Brian Davis. Robert Edwin Dean II. Melinda O'Neill Duras. Robert Timothy Ekstrom. Andrew J. Fidale. Evan Matthew Feynman. Christopher Wolf Kraus Fetzer. Christopher Stephen Fields. Andrew Daniel Finicum. Lauren Elizabeth Fisher. Kristen Jamerson Fox in absentia. Courtney Brooke Gam. Michael Preston Gardner. Philip Mark Glenn. Lena E. Golsa Desmond. Eli Charles Gottlieb. Alexandra Dare Graham. Camille Whitney Griffin. Megan Elizabeth Williams. Stephanie Renee Hager. Erica Blair Haggard. Jean Patrick Hamilton. Ryan Michael Hankins. Keith Pound Harmon. Eric Julian Hoffman. Jeremy Allen Holt. Brian John Hoynek. Samuel P. Huang. Michael Christian Huff. Francesca Pamela Jean-Baptiste in absentia. Christina Danielle Joyner. Edward Benton Keatley. Harrison Scott Kelly. James Alexander Kennedy II. Jennifer Marie Lake. John Christopher Lamont. Jennifer Tennille Langley. Amanda Renee Ledford. Kyu-Un Lee. William Lee. Jonathan Pratt Lotito. Excuse me, Jonathan Pratt Lockwood. Michael Francis Lotito. Richard Joseph Molesky. Stephen Robert Mamarella. Nathan Joseph Marchese. Dennis Duffy Maxwell, Jr. Marty Joe McCaleb. Miles Cody McCoy. Sarah Elizabeth McManus. Timothy Stephen Mentkowski. Joseph Charles Mercer. Lois Deborah Mermelstein. Michael Robert Meyer. Sarah Elizabeth Milkey. Zachary Ian Mills. Faisal Mogul in absentia. Eric Matthew Morris. Nicholas J. Nedweski. Samuel Biaboli and Cooley. Excuse me, Brittany Nicole Nichols. Samuel Biaboli and Coley. Patrick Timothy O'Brien. Caitlin Veronica O'Donnell. Chance J. Finney. Papakan Pinawatanachip. Michael Joseph Plechnik. Elizabeth Ann Potts. Christopher K. Pratt. Jason C. Radigan. Christopher Robert Riano. Elizabeth C. Roach. David Aaron Robinson. Alexandre V. Rourke. Patrick Timothy Rowe. Quinn Timothy Ryan. Rachel Elizabeth Skoma. Guy Brian Seraph. Zachary Blake Setzer. Joshua Thomas Shaw. Shannon Trent Sherrill. Brett Michael Shockley. Catherine Diane Smith. John Knowlton Sirach. Andrew Aaron Spivak. Jacob B. Storr. Cabot Reed Teachout in absentia. Rajiv Thacker. John Edward Thomas, Jr. Anthony Vidal, Jr. Tayaba Wakar. Cara Ruth Webster. Aaron James Wazorek. Christopher Gerard Wasliger. Charles Richardson Yates. William Fishwick McLean. Please join me in congratulating the class of 2010. Please be seated. I now have the honor of presenting to you our commencement speaker, Carolyn B. Lamb, the president of the American Bar Association. Carolyn, I hope you feel at home here at Washington and Lee. This university has over many generations produced many, many presidents of the American Bar Association. There are few schools in the country that can rival the number of presidents that have come from Washington and Lee. In more modern times, that has included Justice Lewis Powell, who before becoming a justice of the Supreme Court was a president of the ABA. And even more recently, our trustee who was on the podium with us, Robert Gray, who was a distinguished ABA president. I know that Robert Gray was one of Carolyn Lamb's strongest supporters in her efforts to rise to this important position of leadership not only in the United States, but around the world, as the American law profession continues to distinguish itself as a beacon for civil liberties and civil rights and the rule of law throughout the world. By any measure, Carolyn Lamb is one of the nation's greatest and most successful lawyers, civic leaders, and leaders of our profession. She was president of the Washington, D.C. Bar Association. She has had a distinguished record this year as president of the American Bar Association, a position she will hold until the August ABA meeting. She is a distinguished and highly successful partner at the law firm of White & Case. In 2007, she was named by the National Law Journal as one of the 50 most influential women in America. She was named by the Washington Magazine as one of the top 30 lawyers in the District of Columbia. She has been a powerful force for leadership as president of the ABA. She has established a commission on diversity, established a commission on the impact of the economic crisis on the profession and on legal needs for the public. She appointed the ABA's Ethics 2020 Commission, which will consider the possible changes to lawyer ethics and to the nature of the profession in light of globalization and new technologies used by lawyers. She's had many, many leadership positions in the bar. She was a member of the ABA House of Delegates from 1982 to 2008, its Board of Governors from 2002 to 2005. She's former chair of the ABA Young Lawyers Division and the Standing Committee on the Federal Judiciary. And she's had many leadership positions in litigation, international law, and business law. She is known to many as an internationalist in her legal practice. In addition to being on the board of the American Law Institute, she is a member of the American Turkish Chamber of Commerce, the American Indonesian Chamber of Commerce, and the American Uzbekistan Chamber of Commerce. A native of Buffalo, she received her undergraduate degree from the State University of New York College at Buffalo and her law school degree from the University of Miami School of Law. It is an honor for us to have her on this auspicious occasion. Please join me in welcoming Carolyn Lamb.
Thank you very much, Dean Smola and President Ruscio, of course, Robert Gray and John Vardaman, and many great friends here. Thank you to the wonderful faculty who have worked with you, and of course, to the fabulous graduating class, their families and friends. Thank you so much for having me here today. It is an honor and truly a pleasure to be here on such a glorious day, and congratulations to each of the graduates. Also, congratulations and a great deal of thanks to the parents, to the family members, to the friends who have supported all of the graduates here today. Each of you share in the graduates' joy of this wonderful occasion and all of their accomplishments to date, and will help lead them in the future. Today, you as graduates realize a dream, one that I shared. As members of a noble profession, we have the ability to have a profound effect on people's lives by protecting people's legal rights and ensuring that they have access to justice. I want to reflect shortly on what a wonderful profession it is and the challenges that await you. Given Washington and Lee's innovative curriculum, you are well prepared to face the challenges of today's legal market. We in the profession welcome your energy, your enthusiasm, your talent, and creative ideas, for it is to you to whom those in my generation of lawyers must pass the reins of professional leadership, the guardianship of the rule of law, and our system of justice. Today, with 20/20 hindsight that I've gathered over a career of 35 years in the profession, I'd like to share 5 observations to guide your way to a successful and most of all, enjoyable career in the practice of law. First and foremost, always be principled and remain true to yourself. Madeleine Albright tells us, rely on your inner compass, for only you can set the standard by which your life will be measured. Lawyers with vision and principles are those who can make a profound difference for our society. As lawyers, we have a unique opportunity to serve as catalysts for needed change. For me, a lawyer with ideals that inspired me was Atticus Finch, who I'm sure you all remember watching perhaps many years ago in a film version of To Kill the Mockingbird. He stood alone to defend his client against racism that infected a community. As a young lawyer, I longed to stand beside Atticus and to stand for what he stood for, to fight the good fight, and to win. You can do that now. You can prevent injustice and preserve the rule of law. And let me give you an example of the importance of the preservation of the rule of law through words that were written some 65 years ago. And I'm quoting, "Is it because I haven't been outdoors for so long that I've become so smitten with nature? I remember a time with the magnificent blue sky, chirping birds, moonlight, and budding blossoms that wouldn't have captivated me. Things changed since I came here." These words were some of the last words written by a young girl whose whole world was a small hiding place. She wrote those words in her diary. Her name was Anne Frank. The Nazis paid lip service to the rule of law, and then having the power to do whatever they wanted. As lawyers, we have an obligation to ensure that the rule of law remains strong, so that something like that is never tolerated again. The rule of law is tied to justice and human dignity. Sometimes the term rule of law may sound like an abstraction with little connection to people's daily lives, but history is full of evidence that reminds us otherwise. 19 years after Anne Frank wrote in her diary, a young man in a different country sat in a dark cell and wrote words on toilet paper, as it was all that he had. His name was Dr. Martin Luther King, and he was writing the letters from the Birmingham jail. In that famous letter, Dr. King wrote about the difference between just and unjust law. He reminded us that everything the Nazis did was legal, and everything that the freedom fighters did was illegal. When the door to Anne Frank's hiding place was opened, she was arrested and shipped to a concentration camp to die, all according to law. When the door to Martin Luther King's cell was opened, he was released and he helped to heal and lead a nation. As imperfect as our nation was then, we struggled toward justice, and we still do. It is not just the rule of law that we are called upon to strengthen, but the rule of just law. Many sit in rooms made dark by poverty. They sit in rooms made dark by ignorance, by injustice, by indifference. They sit in rooms that are dark because the light of the rule of law never shines. And they wonder what will happen if it does. You now hold a powerful tool to ensure that the rule of law exists, is respected, and is enforced. Let that be an ideal that guides your professional life. I've been a practicing lawyer for 35 years now, and I've found the profession of law wonderful and challenging, and my career in the profession most enjoyable. But throughout my career, I have been and continue to be inspired by certain classical ideals of the profession. These ideals remain relevant and increasingly important in the modern practice of law, and I hope you will reflect on these ideals, internalize them, and that they will inspire and guide your role in the profession. I'll turn to the second, and I think similarly of central importance. Lawyers hold the keys to our justice system. We must protect it for all, even those who cannot afford it and even those who are unpopular. We must work to ensure that all have access to justice, not just those with resources or those who stand for popular causes, but the poor and the unpopular. Being a lawyer carries with it a responsibility to engage in pro bono and public service, legal work to help people who need it the most. Representing the poor is an enduring need in our society. With nearly 80% of the legal needs of the poor in this country going unaddressed, there is a tremendous role for each of you with your law degrees to assist. This year, in fact, there are 65 million Americans who qualify as below the poverty guidelines for legal aid, and yet the Legal Services Corporation, because of limited funding, reaches out to only 1 to 2 million of them. It is essential that our justice system be open and available to all. Ensuring access to justice for the popular also remains a compelling calling. It ensures the unpopular, also remains a compelling calling. It ensures that our justice system reflects the values of our country. As lawyers and leaders of your communities, which you will be stewards of individual rights and trustees of our justice system, protectors of our Constitution, defenders of justice and freedom. Never has the role of the lawyer been more important than it is today. All persons are entitled to the benefit of the rule of law and adjudication of their rights. Our American legal profession has a proud history of standing up to right wrongs, no matter how unpopular the cause, and to ensure that the defense of the unpopular is as vigorous as defense of the mainstream. In March of 1770, John Adams and Josiah Quincy represented the British Army captain Preston following the Boston Massacre, winning his acquittal. Condemned by many for the representation, these patriots devoted their talent to ensure access to justice and due process to one accused of a heinous crime. Our adversarial system depends on the willingness of lawyers to undertake representation of some who are viewed as unpopular. Indeed, the zealous advocacy of legal counsel protects the entire system of justice, as well as each person's rights to justice. Indeed, one of my very favorite and very compelling examples of this is in the play A Man for All Seasons with Sir Thomas More, where he declared that even the devil was entitled to the benefit of law. There is a very dramatic exchange with his son-in-law, William Roper, who was arguing that he would deny the devil the benefit of law. And he would cut down every law in England to do that. You may recall the exchange. I'm going to read you what Sir Thomas More said, because it remains true and it remains central to what we must do today. More replied to Roper saying, "Oh, and when the last law was down and the devil turned round on you, where would you hide, Roper, all the laws being flat? This country is planted thick with laws from coast to coast, man's laws, not God's. If you cut them down and you're just the man to do it, do you think you could stand upright in the winds that would blow then, yes, I'd give the devil the benefit of law for my own safety's sake. Today we see all too much evidence of denying those cast as the devil or whom certain segments of society may hate the benefit of law in the name of national security, immigration enforcement and control, or otherwise. We see such laws as Arizona's recently passed immigration law that permits racial and ethnic profiling. We must condemn such laws and seek to have the courts declare them unconstitutional and take a constitutional approach to immigration control. Today, we have an immigration adjudication system that the ABA's recently released 500-page report demonstrates denies those charged with violations basic due process rights, denial of legal rights, and due process to any may evolve to denial of legal rights for many. We cannot tolerate this. Today, we must stand collectively to make a difference on issues of significance, and that's why the ABA exists. We responded as the ABA in one clear voice when strident voices recently derided the integrity and patriotism of our colleagues who did their professional duty to ensure due process in our justice system by representing the terrorist detainees on a pro bono basis. Our voice was backed by lawyers from across the political spectrum, lawyers who understand that in America, our system of justice is only fair when each party is ably represented to their fullest. We also recently responded in one clear voice when the Maryland legislature sought to demand privileged records of law school clinics to bar them from representing certain clients. Again, a position supported by lawyers from the left and the right. Collectively and individually, we must ensure all are afforded equal justice and protected by the rule of law. My third observation is, as lawyers, you must be vigilant keepers of the Constitution and defenders of the rule of law. The phrase equal justice under law is engraved over the entrance to the Supreme Court. To me, this phrase embodies the essence of the term rule of law. The rule of law describes a system not only where everyone has access to the law and where the law protects everyone equally, but also where no one is above the law. Each of us as lawyers must instill respect for the Constitution and the rule of law. Together, we must remind ourselves and all lawyers that we must preserve and defend the rule of law, as no constitution, no matter how revered, may fight for itself. Today, protecting and promoting the Constitution and the rule of law is a major challenge for lawyers and countries around the world. In my practice, I've certainly worked in many countries and with many lawyers and witnessed firsthand in legal systems of many diverse places, including Russia, Uzbekistan, Peru, Argentina, Indonesia, Turkey, the Philippines, and I've observed close hand some of the huge challenges faced by societies where the rule of law is either underdeveloped, disregarded, or distorted. The administration of justice functions shakily, and where combating corruption is a daily effort. I've seen, in contrast, what people's lives in those societies are, the disregard for human life, human rights, business, and life is profound. It is something that each of us must struggle to correct and do as much as we can from here or there to assist in the preservation of the rule of law and access to justice. Freedom's best protection is a fair justice system with fair laws and justice for all. It is for that reason that Daniel Webster called justice the greatest concern of man on earth. That was true 200 years ago when he said it, and it's true today. Fourth, lawyers are architects of our future society. Not only do lawyers defend the law and see that it is carried out properly, we believe in strengthening the rule of law, in protecting the independence of the judiciary and the profession. We, as lawyers, must influence the law's development. Members of our profession are called upon not just to bear witness to history, but to have a bearing on it. Individually and collectively, that must guide our acts. As a lawyer, you have a responsibility to help find solutions to national problems and engage in work that can shape our future. As a lawyer, you can promote the rule of law by working to improve it. As a lawyer, you can ensure society is moving in the right direction, and if not, in your view, have a dissenting voice. As a lawyer, you must speak out if courts or judges are unjustly attacked or maligned for applying the rule of law. As the business of our profession becomes global and threats to peace and security continue to transform our world, and as lawyers, we are increasingly challenged with profoundly difficult problems, whether global warming, terrorism, piracy, limited energy supplies, a continually destabilized Middle East, a world where America's laws and its system of justice indeed is a world where dramatic principles no longer enjoy universal acceptance. As a profession, we must assist in the formation of solutions that will ensure that justice and the rule of law continue to play a central role in our country and in our world. The power of a legal education provides you the ability and a roadmap to accomplish such results. As you embark on your journey in the profession, to which I welcome you today, and face these very challenging times that we live in, you must work collectively to safeguard the rule of law, to ensure access to justice, to address these fundamental issues of importance to our profession and the public. Of course, none of us knows what the future holds, but I know who holds the future in their hands, and it is you. And fifth, remember to strike a balance in your life by taking seriously what you do, but ensuring that you remain devoted to your family, immediate and extended friends, and enjoy life. Balance means that you maintain existing friendships and close relationships with your family, but form new ones, for friendship is truly the glue of life. The friends that you've made here and that you continue to make as a practicing lawyer will really add a wonderful dimension to your life. You should ensure that each day you enjoy some humor. As Sir Francis Bacon asserted, imagination was given to man to compensate him for what he is not, a sense of humor to console him for what he is. The legal profession provides an exciting and challenging journey through life. Make sure you enjoy yourself along the way and make the most of it. When I think back on it, I realize that Atticus Finch was guided by the same classical ideals that inspire me: concern for access to justice, respect for the Constitution and the rule of law, and a sense of responsibility about the future. He provided legal services for a client who could not pay. He stood up for his community's marginalized citizens, for those who experienced injustice. He worked so that the protections of the law and the Constitution were applied to everyone equally so that the rule of law would prevail. And in doing all of these things, he worked, maybe unknowingly and undoubtedly through small steps, to impact the lives of many and to bring about large-scale change. I urge each of you to stand for the ideals that Atticus stood for, and even all these years later, they are as central to the practice of law as they were then. As you embark on your new life as a graduate of Washington and Lee and a member of our profession, I applaud you, encourage you, and happily pass the torch to each of you, for you are each now lawyers. And welcome to the ABA. You'll be getting a year's free membership. Make the most of it. Use all of the tremendous benefits that we give you. Be proud, be honorable, and savor the warmth and happiness of this day. This day should be one of the most exciting moments in your life, and it is a pleasure and an honor to share it with you. Remember this day not only as the day you graduated from law school, but also remember this day as the moment you began to formulate your own standard of the ideal lawyer and to live it. And most of all, remember to dream bold dreams about the law and the profession, to work to achieve and to live them. Congratulations again to each of you and all of your friends and family, and all of you. I celebrate your accomplishments and take delight in welcoming all of you to the profession and to the ABA. Thank you.
Only yesterday, Carolyn Lamb was in Istanbul working on the international rule of law. She flew back to give us that wonderfully inspiring speech, for which we're grateful. And as a token of that gratitude, I'll now invite Joe Mercer and Eric Morris, the president and vice president of the third-year class, to present Ms. Lamb with a gift.
On behalf of everyone here in the WNL community, we would just like to thank you for taking the time to give this address. And as a token of our appreciation, we offer you this walking stick, which has been engraved for the occasion. And again, thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. Thank you. You know, I don't have one of these. This is fabulous.
Well, I began with a quote from Dr. Seuss, and I'd like to end with one as well. You have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes, you can steer yourself in any direction you choose. You're on your own, and you know what you know. You are the guy who'll decide where to go. We wish you the best. I'll now recognize President Ruscio.
Thank you, Dean Smola. Thank you, Carolyn Lamb, for those inspiring remarks. And I don't have much to add to Dr. Seuss, that's for sure. But it is my duty now to bring these exercises to their fitting conclusion by expressing our gratitude to all those who have made this day possible. We remember the faculty whose scholarship and commitment to teaching have intellectually prepared you to begin your careers. We remember also your families and friends who have sacrificed on your behalf time, labor, and substance over these years of study. Alumni and friends of the university whose continuing generosity has supported you during your time here, often in ways you may not have realized. And finally, the staff, administrators, custodians, and dining service and facilities management employees whose daily and faithful performance of their duties has made your lives more comfortable. On behalf of the class, I thank them for making today possible for each of the graduates. To the graduates, I follow the tradition of my predecessors in taking these last moments to remind you what it means to enter a profession. We use the term profession too loosely these days, and some of the more meaningful characteristics that separate a true profession from mere jobs or careers have become frayed around the edges. Your lives should be characterized by a sense of duty, of obligation, and of a commitment to a greater good. The profession of law is a higher calling, and as you embrace that profession, do not shy away from the potential sacrifice that it may sometimes require. Do not look the other way when a decision demands an act contrary to your immediate self-interest. And never forget that the privilege and authority granted to you as a member of this noble profession mean also that failing to live up to its highest ideals will directly disadvantage the individuals and the communities you serve. This is a very powerful life you have chosen, with the capacity to do much good, but with real consequences when you do not. Your years at Washington Lee have prepared you in ways that are not readily apparent today. During our time here, we come to take for granted the benefits of collegiality and civility, or how trust in others leads us to respect individuals. We tell the truth as a matter of course. When we face a decision about how to behave, we don't ask first, what are the consequences to me? We ask what is appropriate and right. The character of our community develops within us certain habits of the heart. That will serve you well in a profession where integrity matters. And if I hear one common refrain from your fellow alumni, it is that Washington Lee did not just prepare them to be lawyers, it prepared them to be a certain kind of lawyer, one who seeks to fulfill the profession's noblest aspirations.